So I have spent the last week in the City of Mist. However, this week's episode I will show you a little adventure I went on. City of Mist is a very popular zone to level in on Project 99, so sometimes it can get quite overpopulated. During one of these times of overpopulation, I was just sitting around with my looking for group tag up, having absolutely no luck until I received a message asking if I wanted to join a group in Lower Guck. Luckily I was able to find a port out of Emerald Jungle almost immediately, and I went straight to South Row, which leads me into Innerthiel Swamp. The entrance to Guck is located within Innerthiel Swamp, a zone which also holds the entrance to the troll starting city of Grob. Legend has it that Guck was once home to the trolls. The upper part of the city is fairly intact and is home to numerous froglocks now. The lower section of the city is where the ancient ruins can be found. Rumours persist of an undead legion of froglocks that are being built in the depths of the ruins. So once I got there, I had to kind of try and remember my way through Upper Guck in order to get to Lower Guck. I never fully learnt my way around in the first place, so I had to kind of fumble my way through here. Luckily the zone only goes up to about level 35, so I can kind of navigate through here in relative safety. Some of the higher level mobs still do aggro onto me, so I still need to use Feign Death. And I didn't have time to find a bind on my way, so I had to kind of be especially careful, because if I had died, I would have ended up back in Cabalus, which is on a completely different continent. After making my way through Upper Guck, I met my group in Lower Guck, not far from the zone line. Because Lower Guck is a mixture of living and dead creatures, it makes it kind of hard to navigate your way through using invisibility spells. This means the easiest thing to do is to kind of fight your way through as a group. Here you can see we are passing the Assassin's Room. This is a pretty popular spot because the Ghoul Assassin spawns here as well as the Ghoul Supplier, and they both drop some pretty good loot. Amazingly, both of them were up at the time, so we got to kill them. The supplier dropped the thick banded belt, and this amazingly awesome group let me have it because it was an upgrade. The belt is 8 AC and 15 strength, which is just huge. It also only weighs 0.5, so it's perfect for monks. It's worth about 3,000 platinum, which is more than I have, so it really made my day getting it. So the Ghoul Assassin has a chance to drop a kind of average rogue dagger, and he also has a chance to drop the Dark Elf Illusion Mask, which bards and rogues can use. Unfortunately, he only dropped the dagger. So from here we took a shortcut downstairs to the area we were going to camp. This is a pretty sweet spot. There are only 2 mobs that patrol through here, so it's fairly safe for a group to camp. There are 3 rooms that surround this spot. To the left, there is the Executioner's room. That has around 6 mobs that can spawn in it, and it can also spawn the Ghoul Executioner. In the middle, there's the Sage's room. This has around 4 mobs that can spawn here, and can also spawn the Ghoul Sage. Then off to the right, there's the Cavalier room. This only has like 2 spawns I think, but also has a chance to spawn, you guessed it, the Ghoul Cavalier. Each of these named mobs drop some really nice loot. The trickiest thing to do down here is probably splitting the Executioner's room. As you can see here, I pull the room and then Feign Death and Sneak to split the pull apart. Now I don't know if it's because it's a dungeon or just because I'm a higher level now, but mobs do not drop aggro until they have walked all the way back to their spawn positions. This means that if I get up from a Feign Death before a mob has turned around and walked all the way back to the spot that I aggroed it from, it will re-engage me. So this is where Sneak comes in, because as long as you are sneaking once they are not facing you, they will not aggro you unless directly attacked. And the only problem with this is once you take any kind of damage, Sneak will wear off, and again, if they haven't completely reset by the time Sneak wears off, they will re-aggro. So this is where the fight gets a little tricky. Now I've managed to get 2 froglocks back to the group. That's a successful split. We then got one of the roaming mobs added on to us. 3 mobs is fine, this group can handle that easy. Now because I took damage while pulling, my Sneak wore off, and this Ghoul Knight re-engaged because he had not fully reset back to his starting position. Now there are 2 things I could have done. I could have either gotten up and pulled him, We have an enchanter, so we could probably handle 4 mobs, no worries. Or I could have just stayed feigned until he completely reset. However, I don't like lying around on the job while my group kills shit. So instead, I opt to wait until he turns around, then use sneak, get back up, and walk into the fight. Now this usually works fine, because you can attack while sneaking. It's only when you take damage that sneak drops off. And I'm not at any risk of pulling aggro by this stage. The only problem is, I did not realise that this Froglock Ghoul Wizard is casting a damage shield on himself. So once the damage shield goes up, I take damage from hitting him, my sneak breaks, and the Ghoul Knight from earlier is probably just getting back into the room that I pulled him from, where he has 2 more Froglock friends waiting. So now that he has re-engaged me within the proximity of his 2 friends, all 3 of them are hopping their way down the corridor towards us. Luckily, our group consisted of a cleric, 2 warriors, an enchanter, a rogue, and myself. We managed to pull this one through because everyone was on the ball. The cleric kept everyone alive, and the enchanter kept everything mezzed, while the rest of us just burned each of the mobs down. I honestly don't think we would have lived if we didn't have an enchanter or a cleric. The next trickiest thing to deal with when pulling down here are the wizard mobs. There are a few reasons why wizards give me trouble. One reason is once they start casting a spell on you, you're going to eat that spell no matter what. Line of sight won't work if they have already started casting. They'll still finish the spell even if you're like 2 rooms away. The same applies for Feign Death. Once they have started casting, if you feign death, they will drop aggro. However, the cast will continue, and once it lands on you, unless you resist it, you take damage. Then they re-engage you, even if you're feigned. And then all the mobs surrounding them also aggro you once they re-engage. Another reason is the lightning strike spell that these wizards cast. They have a small knockback to them. This knockback makes your character spin slightly, and it's very easy to lose your bearing in a place like this. Here you can see I eat 2 lightning strikes and then get turned slightly. I then completely lose where I'm headed and I start running the opposite direction. I came so close to dying from wizards a few times down here, but whether it be by luck or just because our cleric was awesome, I never ended up dying. Take a look at my health here, then watch my combat log in the bottom left. It's an absolute miracle that I did not eat a dirt nap right here. So once you get the rooms split down here, this place becomes a walk in the park. We had this whole area on lockdown. I had mobs literally spawning 1 at a time in every single room. We had almost 0 downtime. We never did manage to get any of the named mobs to spawn, apart from the Cavalier, and unfortunately that got stolen from us by a level 60 Pally. We were recovering from a pretty big fight with some of the wizard mobs, so while we were meting back up in the downtime, Pally rolled through and just killed the Cavalier, which kind of sucks, but you know, what can you do? At one point we had to fight off a small train. We did manage to take care of it, but due to the downtime it caused, all the rooms pretty much fully respawned. When I tried to resplit the rooms, one of them had a few wizards in it and we ended up losing the cleric to like wizard nukes. We managed to survive the fight after that, but once we got everyone regrouped, both of the warriors had to leave and the group was pretty much over after that, like it fell apart. But it was really fantastic while it lasted. The cleric used invisibility versus undead to get us back out towards the top. Unfortunately, once you get up to where the bats are, they are not undead. So they see through the invis versus undead. This is part of the reason it makes it so hard to kind of navigate through here using invisibility spells, because half the mobs can see invis, and then half the mobs can see through invis versus undead. Anyway, we got aggro from the bats, which caused them to hit the warrior, so that dropped his invis versus undead. So then he aggroed more undead along the way, and then he got stuck in the water because he's an ogre, which really sucks. I can't imagine being an ogre and trying to navigate through a zone like this without shrink. It must be awful. So anyway, he got stuck in the water and ended up dying. But luckily, we managed to get who died, everyone's corpses back up to the entrance just in time for a level 60 cleric to zone in. And he pretty much gave everyone like a 96% res with his epic. So it all worked out fine in the end. So, as I said, after this the group did break up, but the cleric and I decided we could go and duo in the Dreadlands. We quickly found a port and made our way there. At first I suggested that we could try and camp one of the Yeti Caves, but once we encountered a Yeti in the first tunnel that we ran through and we saw it doing this, we decided that wasn't so much of a good idea after all. So as you can see, once it got low and it started fleeing, it somehow managed to walk through the wall inside the cave, and then it kind of got stuck running back and forth on the inside of the wall. Couldn't hit it with melee. I don't think spells could hit it because of line of sight issues. What I ended up having to do was kill it with throwing weapons, and you can kind of see like all these throwing weapons like stuck on the wall here. So we kind of decided to give the caves a bit of a miss. So we figured the next safest bet was to set up shop near a zone line, so that if we did run into some trouble, we could just zone out in relative safety. The walls along the outside of Carnell's Castle are one of the most popular places to grind in the Dreadlands. There's an infinite supply of roaming monsters out in the fields, and if things get a little too messy, you can always just zone into the castle. I spent the first half of my 40s here back on live, and the zone used to be filled with groups just killing stuff out here. On Project 99, however, this zone seems to be more popular with higher end soloers, probably because it's an outdoor area and it's a really good place to kite, so it's very popular with like druids, wizards and bards. As you can see, that druid that just passed us was kiting about 10, maybe more, Drollvargs, and he was just doing laps around the castle. It was pretty nuts. So killing stuff in the Dreadlands like this just consists of running out into the fields, finding a single mob and bringing it back to the wall to kill it. When duoing or in smaller groups, people usually avoid the spider mobs out here because they cast and they can cause all sorts of headaches when you're pulling and killing them. But other than the spiders, everything out here is pretty simple. After a little while, we found a necromancer to join our group. This opened up the option to fear kite, so another good thing about the fields of monsters out here is as long as they're not the same kind of monster, they won't help each other out. So that means that if we were to fear a Drollvarg and then it ran back out into the field, in theory none of the other monsters would social aggro onto us unless they were also a Drollvarg. Not that it's really an issue, because if you drag the mobs back up against the wall before you fear them, they'll usually run along the side of it once they are feared instead of running back out into the field anyway. After a while the cleric had to leave, which left just me and the necro to duo. This still worked out really well because both of us can fear, and necros even have the ability to heal party members. They drain like a bit of their own health and they give it to their target. It's by no means like the best heal in the world, but it's a lot better than nothing. That will pretty much end it for this week. Everything you saw in this episode, I was still in level 40 hell. By the time I finished up in the Dreadlands, I think I had about 10% of the level left to go. I'm sorry this one took a few weeks to get out, guys. As I said last week, things have kind of slowed down now that I'm in my 40s. Currently, at the time of making this video, I am level 45 and I'm still powering through the City of Mist, although I have been kind of too busy to play for almost a week now, so that kind of sucks. I've also spent a fair amount of time trying to get the Ancient Cyclops to spawn in South Row, unfortunately with no luck, so I have some footage for that. However, I don't see any point in showing it until I can actually show me spawning it and killing it and then going and getting the J-boots. And finally, one last thing before I go, I've started running into people who watch my videos in game more often now. So a few shoutouts. I met Quintal here in a City of Mist group, and then we also crossed paths in the Dreadlands, and you can see he was very so kind to keep us buffed as we killed stuff, so thanks a lot for that, man. Also, I was running towards Guck, and I ran into Zadis, who I'm guessing is Badis, who I gave a shout out in one of my previous videos, but I could be wrong about that. Also, shoutouts to Kazar, who sent me a tell saying that he loved the videos. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate that. And finally, Cripsilot, who recognized me when I was in City of Mist. We spoke for a bit. He actually streams some Project 99 footage, and you can find his channel at twitch.tv/redwjams. I'll put up the name on the screen so you can go and check that out if you want to see someone streaming the game live. So yeah, that's pretty much everything that I can think of for this week, guys. Thanks everyone for watching, and keep posted. I will hopefully get the City of Mist video out within the next couple of days. Like, I have all the footage and stuff, so hopefully, you know, no longer than 5 days. Anyway, after that, possibly, I don't know what we're gonna do. Maybe more AC. Who knows? It's a mystery. We'll see. Anyway, so until next time, peace.